I mean, that's a very fun way to serve up a cookie, if you ask me.
Ollie,
I caught them. I caught them. This is Spiced Peanut Shortbread, take one. So today we are making cookies, and they are cookies from More is More, and they are called the Spiced Peanut Shortbread Cookies. And I was just thinking that these would be great Christmas cookies. They weren't developed as Christmas cookies or holiday cookies, if you will, but they're spiced and they're slice and bakes and they're super easy to make. And because it's the holidays, I figured I would show you how to make them. They're a mashup of a peanut butter cookie and a shortbread cookie. So they have the tenderness and like the crumbly melt in your mouth mouthfeel of shortbread, but they're packed with peanuts. So they have like peanutty flavor, and then they're rolled in cardamom and black pepper and sugar and salt. Pretty much all my favorite things. A few things to know about this recipe. One, the entire thing is gonna happen in your food processor. I don't call for food processors unless I feel like they're really necessary. This is an example of like, it will make your life so much easier. It's like a blitz and dump and roll and slice and bake situation. Two, your butter needs to be at room temperature for this recipe so that the dough is malleable enough that you can roll it into a really nice log. Three, there is a technique, little trick that I'm gonna show you to turn it into a perfect circular log that you can then slice and then bake. How does it start? With the food processor. The first thing we're doing is making the crunchy coating. Do you see this? There's little crunchy, crispy itty bitties all around the outside of the cookies, and that is the like peanut mixture. So we're gonna make the mixture here, remove some of it, and then the rest of the peanuts will go into the dough. So we're blitzing until they look like really coarse sand. You don't want them too chunky or they'll fall off the outside. I'm gonna measure out 1/3 of a cup of the crumbs. So I'm just getting in there. This doesn't have to be super precise. Okay, 1/3 of a cup of crumbs, and I'm putting it onto a dinner plate here. And to that, I'm going to add 3 tablespoons of turbinado sugar. Pretty key to get turbinado, which as you can see is really coarse. It's sugar in the raw. So like if you can't find turbinado, just go to the coffee shop and get a bunch of packets of sugar in the raw. 3 tablespoons of that, then 1 teaspoon of flaky salt, and a tablespoon of black pepper. So if you're like, why the hell is this bitch putting black pepper in her cookies? Think about chai, spice, chai tea, chai lattes. They have oftentimes black pepper and cardamom and ginger and these like almost savory, spicy spices in them. And it just contrasts with all the butter and the sugar in the cookie, and it's really fun. And then you're just gonna use your fingers to mix it all together and then set it aside. And this is what we're gonna roll our logs in a couple minutes. And now we're gonna make the rest of the cookie dough with what's left of the peanuts in the food processor. To the remaining crumbs, I am adding 1 1/4 cups of all-purpose flour, 1/4 cup of granulated sugar, so just straight up white sugar, 3/4 of a teaspoon of ground cardamom, 3/4 of a teaspoon of kosher salt. Then we're gonna blitz it together. Multitask. Okay. So now we've got a peanutty flour mixture, and we're gonna add 8 tablespoons of room temperature, not warm, but room temperature butter. So that's 1 stick, 1 American stick, and it's helpful to cut it into a bunch of little pieces because they will incorporate more easily into the dough that way. So now let's blitz this, and we're just waiting until the butter like cuts into the dough. Cutting the butter into the dough means that the blade of the food processor is like chopping through the butter and incorporating it into flour with every single pulse. And the more that you work it, the more that the flour and the butter sort of knead together and become no longer flour, no longer butter, but something in between, which is dough. So you can already see like right now, it's starting to come together. Here, take a look. Where there are like large crumbles and clumps, it kind of looks like they kind of hold together, okay, but it's not yet formed a dough. So we're part way there. We're gonna keep pulsing. Eventually, you're gonna see the crumbs start to stick together and it will form a ball. Clump City. I'm gonna give it a scrape so you can see we're starting to form a ball. We are becoming a dough. Little scrape, one more pulse, and then we'll be good. So you can see now that like if you press together with your hands, this will become a ball of dough. If there are some big crumbs that are still stuck behind, just grab them from the food processor, squeeze them together, and add them to your ball. Here comes the part where we turn this into a log. So as I mentioned earlier, because we used room temperature butter, this dough is very malleable. So I'm gonna give it a jump start by just like forming it into a log-like shape. And you want them to be like somewhere between 1.5 to 2 inches round. So that's what the circumference should be. And then here's what we do. In order to create a really nice, perfectly round circular shape, we place it on a piece of parchment. We fold the parchment over so that it's covering the dough. We take a bench scraper and we create some tension so that the bench scraper is pressed up against this log. I'm grabbing the top edge of the parchment with this bench scraper pressed up against the log, and I'm pulling forward. And as I do so, I'm moving the bench scraper back and forth, and the tension is creating a smooth outer edge. It's genius. And you can do it as many times as you need to get the perfect shape. Oh my God, I forgot the vanilla. It's totally fine, just when you add the butter, a teaspoon of vanilla extract. The cookies will still be good without it, but just put it in there. I'm a dum-dum. Okay, so now that we have a perfect cylindrical log, I am just wrapping it up in the same piece of parchment, and then I'm throwing this in the fridge to chill. We want it to be super, super hard so that we can get really nice slices. And I'm going to grab the swap in the meantime. Okay, so these have been chilling for a couple of hours, so it's very hard and solid. The butter is chilled now. And we're gonna do the rolling portion. What we wanna do is cut this log into like thirds or in half, just because it's easier to roll it when it's in smaller pieces. So now we've got 2 nice circular logs. I'm cracking an egg white into this shallow bowl. So reserve the yolk for aioli, and then just give that like a little stir, just to break it up a little. You can use your hands. And then we go from the log, roll it into the egg white all around. The egg white is just gonna act as like the glue for the peanut crumbs. So make sure that it's nice and egg whited all over. And then we go straight into the cookie crumbs, the peanut crumbs, and we roll. And you just go back and forth and roll. And you can even kind of like encourage some of it by sprinkling it over top and patting it in. It's good to press on the crumbs a bit so that they're really like sunken into the dough. That way they don't fall off when you slice. So there's one log, and then we're gonna repeat it with the other one. And now we slice, and then we bake. 325 on a parchment lined baking sheet, cutting board, both of our logs. And then here's another technique that's great when you are working with a slice and bake log. Every time you cut a cookie, so you make a cut, you transfer the cookie and you turn the log 1/4 turn and cut again. And you repeat this process, and that way the pressure from your knife doesn't make a flat bottom of your cookie because you're moving it every single time. It's just like so that we don't lose all of the work that we did to make the round. You'll need 2 baking sheets. They don't spread a ton in the oven, but they will spread a little bit, and you don't want to cram them. I can just tell that these are fucking tender. Just the way that the dough is like barely held together tells me that we pulled it out of the food processor at the exact right moment and didn't overwork it, and that they're gonna be truly melt in your mouth. Okay, so let me space these out and we'll get one round going. We're not going to waste all of these leftover crumbs, so I'm gonna sprinkle the tops of each of the cookies with more of Little Crispy Crunchies. And you can kind of like press them in. Back here, over here. Perfect, and then we don't waste any of this yummy. Okay, and then we bake. 325, they're gonna take like 15, maybe 18, 19 minutes, depends how hot your oven is. Get an oven thermometer, I can't stress that enough. It's so important in baking. My oven runs 75 freaking degrees hot. 325, and we're gonna rotate them halfway through so that they're evenly toasted all around. Hell yeah, 325, 7 minutes, which is about halfway on the conservative side. And so now we're going to Flip and rotate. You can see that they haven't really expanded much because they're shortbread. They don't have leavener in them. They don't have egg in them. But this way, the back row doesn't get darker before the front row. The back of the oven is hotter because it has the oven wall there. And so it's always a good practice to flip and rotate. So here's what they look like when they're done. Not that different from the ones that went in, just like a little more golden brown, and the peanuts are a little bit toasty, and they're baked now. And then if you want to display them in a fun way, martini glasses make great cookie jars. You can do a little stack, a Rooney. No, we good, we good.
You good?
Yeah. Ah! I mean, that's a very fun way to serve up a cookie, if you ask me.
Ollie,
I caught them. I caught them. Tenderoni. They taste like a mashup between a peanut butter cookie and like a buttery shortbread. They're right down the middle, but then they're spiced and they like have a little moment of salt on the outside, a little crunchy texture. It's just like a very appealing cookie, if you ask me. We made cookies in a food processor because it was the right tool for the job and made our life easier, and we didn't have to spend 20 minutes finely chopping peanuts. We learned about why room temperature butter is sometimes preferable in a cookie, and in the case of wanting to form a really nice log that's malleable, room temperature but not soft butter. And then I taught you a technique for turning that log into a perfect round circle so that you get nice, perfect round cookies. And then we stacked them up. And then we ate them. And we loved them. We loved every minute of it. Shortbread cookies are better with peanuts because they taste like peanuts. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. When I was little, my dad used to put pots and pans on his head, and he would take a wooden spoon and he would walk around like this with banging his head with the pots and pans and just being like so loud and disruptive. It was cute though. Yeah, that's where I get my obnoxiousness from. I love you, Dad.